currently the VP of product development for Tour Edge. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Vice President of Product Development. Yep.
When did you're kind of young to be a VP.
Yeah, so I got an opportunity at Tour Edge about, I guess it was about a year and a half ago now. And we had some really good conversations, and luckily enough, I was able to convince them that I was the right guy for the job. Showed them my stuff, and they believed it. So, but here we are a year and a half later, and I think we've got some pretty good product. And, my bluffs and the tales I told them, they were true. So,
right. So you kind of started at an interesting time for Tour Edge and for golf, and it's kind of like for what has happened since you started there.
Yeah, I did. It was crazy. So I started in October of 2019. So just about a year and a half ago now. So, the first couple months with kind of just like, drinking from the fire hose, just trying to figure out what was going on, what we had to do, what all the product that was coming out, what we, because I'm sure but at Tour Edge, we've got 3 different product lines of all. So it was crazy. The first couple months were wild. But then things were really rolling, and we were feeling good through January, February. And then it was, almost a year ago today, I was looking back. So my daughter's turning 2 tomorrow. So, a year ago, we were flying down to Dallas for her birthday, and, coronavirus was still just like a twinkle. I remember a couple of, my wife's uncles were giving, elbow bumps at the party and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then, I remember flying back, and my wife and child were hanging around for a little bit more in Dallas. And it was 2 days later, and my wife was like, you need to go to the grocery store. You need to get us water and rice and canned foods and whatever. I was like, oh my God. I was like, what is going on? And, it was so crazy how quickly things just got crazy, and the world kind of changed. At least for us, it really felt like almost overnight. It was wild. And, and then we really saw, it was a scary 2 or 3 months in the golf industry too. March, April, and May were really, pretty much everything was shut down because, we were coming out of winter. So up here, nobody was golfing yet. And, then it was, places like California was shutting down. And so it was a scary, crazy time. So it was a pretty wild, and we had just moved up here to Chicago, and we were like, oh boy, this isn't good, but really luckily, and, you've probably heard this from some of the other folks, it was one of the few sports and activities that people could start doing once we got to May, June. And, I think with the product we make at Tour Edge, kind of the various price points we target, really, we've been in a really good spot, and we've been really, really lucky to have what happened. It's been horrible, but, for golf, it's exciting for golf, and we hope a lot of these new golfers stick around. So.
Yeah. And I mentioned it to Claff, our pal John over there.
Yeah.
That I feel like with this rebirth of golf as the people's game, so to speak, I've called the Tour Edge stuff kind of the people's equipment.
Yeah.
And it's low cost, high quality stuff. That's it. And really, so I'll tell you a story about and I wanted to ask you how much. It's funny that you mentioned when you come into the company like Tour Edge and where they were right before they released a ton of stuff. So when you talk about drinking from the fire hose, I can only imagine. But I got my hands on a set of the new Hot Launch 521s, right?
Okay.
The E series. And the moment I hit them, they're the easiest clubs I've ever hit. Unless you want to hit a slice, then it's really hard to do. But I ended up giving a set to my son who has never, ever played golf before. And he that's going to be his gateway drug into the game because it's going to make it so much fun. Those clubs are so easy to hit. They do just launch the golf ball. And so, he's an example. He and I went out with my 2 daughters for Father's Day last year. It was the only time my kids have ever gone golfing with me. And, it happened. It was like a legit origin story right there. My own kids.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, really. They understood how much fun it was. And I saw each of them hit one of those shots where it's like, that's it. you're in,
all
right?
all it takes is that one shot every round, at least,
Yeah.
every time
But
you
then,
go out, or,
right. And then, but what's going to happen is like all these new golfers who go and get like the easier to hit stuff, through
Yeah.
Tour Edge, but that's going to create this brand loyalty for you guys for years and years and years. As they get better, they'll just continually move up in because you guys run the gamut in equipment for every type of golfer. It's really it's just so great. It's so impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, that's been those are the really hot products throughout, the pandemic here have really been, the hot launch and bazooka stuff has just been flying off the shelf. Like, if you come out to our warehouse, our warehouse is like empty. The stuff comes in and goes straight out because it's just getting ordered like crazy, because these are all people that are just getting into golf looking for something fairly entry level, relatively decent priced. And, the hope is, and what I think we're seeing happen with the exotics product is that the people are picking up the hot launch stuff, the bazooka stuff, and, they're seeing how easy it is to hit. It's really, it's really easy to get into. The cost is really competitive. But then, once you're ready to get a little better and get a little more serious, we've got something for that too. And I think that's something that we have at Tour Edge that a lot of the other big guys don't have. And that product in that lower cost segment, we design it for those people. Like, it's designed to be really easy to hit. Like the E521 stuff, there's not really anything out there that's designed with as like singular a purpose as the E521 product. It's just designed like to make golf fun. Like, it's not going to go the longest of anything. It's going to go far. It's going to be really easy to hit though, but you're going to get the ball going forward, up in the air, and relatively straight. And you're not going to have that, big, massive slice that's so common for beginning golfers. So, and that's what we've seen in all of our testing on that E521 stuff. It's really been, exciting to see. And it's really fun to put that in people's hands, especially the fairway wood. Like, these are some people fairway woods are really hard to hit anyway. So
I know. Yeah.
But like the E521 fairway wood, you can just hit it. And like, of course, there's no magic cure all. Like, it's not going to go straight magically every time, but it's at least going to go out there and hopefully get up in the air, and, you'll be able to advance the ball with it.
Yeah. I have this huge smile on my face while we're talking about these E521s, because I think back to the first time I hit them, and I was with two other golfers, and we met at the driving range, and to give them a go. We had the E and the C series, and so we were kind of doing some comparison testing and stuff. And the first time I hit the fairway wood from the E series, I actually literally laughed out loud. I like for real LOL'd, because it was so silly. Like, it was just, I think I'd said that's when I'd come up with the term cheat code. It was a cheat code for golf, because they're just so much fun to hit. It's just crazy. And yeah, from that point on, I was like, I got to get these in the hands of my kid, because this is it. This is how he'll get involved in the game, because he has, like you said, you have to have some hand-eye coordination and some ability, and he has enough to be dangerous, right? And so combine that with the E stuff, and it's just a match made in heaven.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my favorite test subject is my dad, because he's a 25 handicapper, slower swing speed, but he also has no like preconceived notions of what a golf club should be or what it looks like. Kind of the opposite. We'll get into my golf story, but I got my dad into golf instead of vice versa.
Oh wow.
So. But he's the best test subject, because he'll just pick it up and just swing it. He's not like, oh, this looks funny, or this looks like it's going to go left or whatever. He just swings it. And it's always, with like the E stuff, it's just so easy for him to hit. And so that's, he's my favorite test subject, because he doesn't come into anything with any preconceived notions. And that's sometimes the toughest thing to do. Yep. For a seasoned golfer, somebody who plays a lot of golf, you have an idea in your head of what a golf club should look like, or what it needs to look like, or what it needs to feel like, whatever that might be. Yeah. So, but I think the E521 stuff, and that's not to discount the C521 stuff. It's really good too. But as far as just being easy to hit and easy to play, you really can't beat our E521 lineup. Yeah.
And we'll get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of the new 721 stuff that you guys just released. But we talk about how it's, an entry level price, an entry level, kind of set of clubs, but then even your like high end stuff, like your really good stuff. Like I've got the 220 3-wood in my bag. I've got right here, I've got a 721 driver.
Nice. Okay.
That stuff. I mean, I would put that up against any driver, any 3-wood on the market today. And it's still way, way cheaper.
And I mean, that's the coolest thing, I think, at Torridge. Like I said, like we can step in the game at the most affordable price, like with our bazooka stuff. And then it's a slight step up to our hot launch stuff. And then again, it's a step up to exotics, but it's still not the step up to the other big boys. But because, Torridge, we kind of operate, we're still relatively small compared to some of these other companies. So we're able to pump all the technology into it without as much of the overhead as some of the bigger guys. So that's what allows us to, have product that competes and has all the tech features that all the other product has that, all the big boys have, while being $100, $200 less in our premium driver, which, and if our biggest challenge is to get in the conversation. Like if you're going to go to PGA Tour Superstore or whatever and grab 3 drivers to hit, it's getting Torridge to be one of them, because if it is, it will stack right up against the big boys. It's just getting into that conversation. And the folks that we do get to convert and get into our stuff, they don't turn back because they know the stuff performs just as well. And they're going to save $100, $200 and be able to go get a new wedge, or something like that. Like it's not small potatoes. So, and if you buy a driver, fairway and hybrid, you all of a sudden save $500 and okay, you can go get a set of irons. So, I think that's really the coolest thing that we're able to do. And it's always at the forefront of our mind when we're developing and working on stuff is being fairly price conscious on things, but we never sacrifice performance. Like we put everything up on the robot and it all stacks up and all performs as good, if not better than all the big boys. So that's one of the really cool things that we've been able to do. Yeah.
All right. So you're not the marketing manager. That's Claff. So he'll be happy about that conversation, but let's talk about let's talk about the product development side, and let's go back in time with you a little bit.
Okay.
So you started with a little company called Adams Golf.
Yes. Correct?
Yeah. What were you doing there?
Yeah. So at Adams Golf, I was a CAD/design engineer. So my first job out of college was not in golf, but it was what I really wanted to do, was be a golf club. When I found out that was like a job, that there were engineers who design golf clubs, I was like,
right. Cause you're a mechanical engineer,
mechanical engineer,
yeah.
Played golf. And, that was like, oh wow, there's engineers that just design golf clubs. I was like, well, that sounds awesome. But as you might imagine, there's not that many people that do that. And when people do get those jobs, there's not a lot of hiring in that world. Like and it's also really hard to just get started in it and be an entry level employee. There's just not that many openings. So, I would scour all the job boards. I'd harass all the companies with emails, usually I didn't hear much back. So I got a job in Florida, working for a government contractor, some really cool stuff. It was a lot of fun, but still every month I'd scour all the job websites, all the golf equipment websites, and found an opening at Adams Golf and applied and was lucky enough to get it. So that was kind of my kickstart in the golf industry. So yeah, it was really exciting and a super cool place to work. And I'm so glad that Adams, so I've experienced a couple different golf companies, but I'm really, really glad that Adams was my introduction to the golf world, because, we had a reasonable sized team, but still very small. And so at Adams, you're really expected, like, if this is your project, let's say it's a hybrid or whatever, it was really your hybrid from cradle to grave. So you were taking it from the initial concept, like, what is this product? What are we going to put on it? The very first prototypes all the way through production and manufacturing. And, because Adams was a little bit smaller, we were able to do that. Now, some of the bigger companies work a little bit differently or a little more segmented, but with Adams, I was really able to get a taste of the entire product development process in golf. And, it was a lot of fun. Got to work on some really cool products and with some really cool people too.
Are there sort of, was that a prep course kind of for the Tourage model? Because I would imagine you have, Tourage as being a relatively smaller company, that you have your fingers in a lot of different sort of pots at the same time. You don't just do X thing and stay in your lane. You have to kind of,
Yeah, definitely. It's it's very similar. It's you know, it's not like you know, I'm not just the, you know, and at some of the other companies, you might just be the CAD engineer for irons, and then there's another guy who is the manufacturing engineer for irons, and it's not
Yeah.
even all irons. It's one segment of irons and and you know, at different scales, that's just necessary to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, we do have to wear many hats. So it might be irons, metal woods, whatever. And you know, while my title is VP of product development, I'm still pretty hands-on in CAD with vendor relations and all that stuff. You know, we have a team that's helping out too, but really we're all kind of wearing all these different hats, and you know, we all work together to make sure it all works. But it's kind of my favorite part of the process, because that was the tougher thing at, you know, at the bigger companies, was like being more hands off in some different areas. I really like the part of the process where it's like, okay, this is my fairway wood to work on, and I'm going to make sure it's right all the way through. Yeah. You know, from all the way from concept to finished cosmetics to, you know, final parts in the warehouse. And so that's definitely a really cool thing that we have here at Tour Edge.
That's cool. Yeah. So then after Adams, was it TaylorMade?
Yeah. So I started at Adams. I don't know the exact, I guess it was 2011 or maybe early 2012. About a week after I started at Adams, it was announced that TaylorMade had purchased Adams. Okay. So I just moved from Florida to Adams was in Plano, Texas, so just north of Dallas. And you know, I had a little bit of an oh no, you know, I mean, I was very happy and excited to be in golf, but I was like, oh well, TaylorMade just bought Adams. I was like, well, that was a fun week in the office. So I was like, I guess I'll pack it up. But you know, we had about 2.5 years where we still operated more or less as our own company. Yeah. I think the golf industry started changing a little bit. You know, the things weren't selling quite as hot and quite as crazy as they were. So eventually TaylorMade, you know, made the decision to shut down operations of Adams Golf in Texas. They kept a few of us engineers on staff. So I actually moved to Carlsbad. Which is actually where I grew up. So I moved back home. Wow. Yeah. Well, not into my home, but to my home area. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was a big change, and, you know, a little bit of that. So, you know, TaylorMade was obviously a completely different machine than Adams, you know, the big, you know, the 8,000-pound gorilla or whatever you want to call it. So it was a very different experience there. And, you know, we were kind of segmented more into our, you know, very specific roles, which, you know, was awesome. But I did have my girlfriend at the time, she's now my wife, was back in Texas. So, you know, I spent some time at TaylorMade and then got an awesome opportunity to get a job at Nike Golf back in Texas at the Oven in Fort Worth.
This is really what I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
Is Nike Golf. But sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. So, got that opportunity, and it was, you know, it was a promotion, and it was back to Texas, and it was with Nike. I was like, oh wow, I kind of had always had a dream of like working at Nike, and I was like, oh, here it is, like this is going to be awesome. Like I'm going to work at Nike Golf, and you know, who knows, like hopefully be there forever, maybe move to Portland at some point. I was like, Nike's awesome. I was like, I love Nike. You know, and spoiler alert, Nike shut down. So at that point, you know, so I was at Nike for just over a year, and it was, you know, an all hands on deck meeting. I was like, wonder what this is about. And it was like, oh, great. All right. Turn in your computer and all that jazz. So it was, you know, that was crazy and yeah, disappointing.
Yeah. No, so I guess you weren't there so like Nike, probably like so many other golfers. So that was my entry that was the very first set of clubs I ever bought, because I didn't start playing until I was 30 years old or so. So I had, you know, like probably a million other men in the world. I had a bag of clubs that I traveled with, you know, as I moved house to house, but it was like, just whatever. But I had my first set of irons, were actually the Mach Speed, irons from Nike. And then so the 223 wood that I referred to just replaced, my Nike 3 wood.
Wow. What was it? Like a VRS?
It was the
speed?
VRS Covert.
Okay, Covert, yeah.
And
it was driver. There were a lot of those we couldn't get out of guys' bags on tour at Nike with the new product. It was a great 3 wood.
I love that thing. I loved it. I still have it. I'm not gonna,
Oh,
it's not gonna
understand.
go.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you should see my garage. So,
I can only imagine. But yeah, like I got into like literally an argument with my pal Bill Bush, he's a big Tour Edge proponent. He introduced me to, I mean, he to the point where he called me an idiot if I didn't switch from the Nike to, like, if I didn't replace my 3-wood with the 220, he's like, you're an idiot if you do that. And this is one of my best friends. I was like, all right, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. I mean, when you have those products that you just love, that like something just works about it. And, I mean, it's something at Tour Edge and at past companies that we deal with all the time with tour staff. They've just got products in their bag that like,
Yeah.
and you see it, like Tiger Woods is just an example. Like even at Nike, it was impossible to get some of the things out of his bag. And you have a putter, you have these things that like they mean something to you, and you can be shown data on a screen that like this other one is better, but it just doesn't matter because you've got this like affinity, like, and it's totally understandable. That's kind of one of the cool things about golf, like, is that there's so much, like, I don't know, yearning for equipment, like so much equipment. I think back to my days of getting very into golf equipment, like in high school, and like some of these legendary golf clubs, like, that I was just a total golf equipment nerd, as you might imagine, but just some of these, I don't know, random Bridgestone drivers that like where people were touting and like, oh, I have to get this thing. And like, I still think about those clubs and like, I wonder where those are, it's like, it's just kind of crazy how, and that's a really cool thing with designing product that people go by, is like, I hope that there's some product like that I've designed that like might be 25 years old someday, but somebody's like, this is the one. I love this club. I'm never getting rid of it. So
I didn't even think about that. That's totally true. And like, you could just like, design the 721 driver and someone falls in love with it, plays it for 10 years maybe, and then hands it off to, the next generation.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And they grow up with the exotics in their bag. And like that came out of your head. Like you designed that thing, I never even thought of that. That's crazy.
And that's one of the things. So like, I talked about my first job briefly, so we were government contractors. So we design these, mostly was working in cooling systems for some really intricate like aircrafts and stuff.
Okay.
And it was really cool, very technical. But we'd send off these things and like, okay, it was like, all right, thanks guys. And we'll use it or whatever. And it's like, it's never like I'm going to go like, oh, look under the hood of an F-35 and be like, there it is. Like, that's what I worked on. So, while being in golf was like the ultimate goal, working in consumer goods was still like, that was secondary. Like that was also something I really wanted to get into. So getting into consumer goods in golf was like huge, because it's really cool to like work on something and then go to a store and see it and see people hitting it, and go to a golf course and like see like something that you worked on or designed or whatever it is. That's really cool to see and experience. And, that's probably the best part of my job, is like, going to demo days or seeing just anyone. Like I love going to the, unfortunately it didn't happen this year, but like the PGA show and watching thousands of people like hit the stuff that we've worked on for so long. And like, hopefully a bunch of people don't hit it and say, like, oh, this thing sucks. Most people aren't that rude. They'll say they like it anyway. But, you can always tell when somebody hits it and it's like, wow, they're hitting it well. Like you see a smile on their face and it's like, all right, that's cool. That's the best part of the job.
I mean, that never even occurred to me that you could walk into a PGA Superstore and just like see what you made on a shelf.
Yep. It's cool.
That's incredible. So let's talk about some of the stuff. Well, I want to actually go back to, you had talked about when you started drinking from the fire hose, and like I can't even imagine coming into a company like Tour Edge with everything that they had going at the time. And then working with someone like David Glad, who like is a big deal, right? And he's been doing that forever. And so how do you sort of get accustomed? How do you sort of like, where do you start when you start a position like that? Like, how do you even, like, where do you pick? Especially, so it's E521, C521, the 220 stuff that came out. You had the Wingman putter. You've got the 721 stuff that just came out. I mean, you walked into just this. You talk about a fire hose. That's
a barrage
probably
of product.
Right, an understatement. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. So actually, the wingman putter was part of my interview.
Really?
So we had been talking like almost all summer. I was talking with Dave Glod as well as John Craig, who's our executive VP, who's kind of been coming in and doing a lot of really helping out on our marketing and sales team. Interviewed, talked on the phone a lot, and it was kind of like one of those things like, okay, and it was part of like where I've obviously sold myself and told a great story, and they were like, well, can you show us? And I was like, yeah. I was like, what we can do something. And they kind of had this idea for a putter, gave me a sketch, and I kind of took it back and basically in my spare time like engineered and designed this putter. So that was kind of over the summer. Yeah. So that was part of my like interview process, was like show them like, hey, I actually can do this. Like I can come in and we can do all this stuff together. So that was really my first like introduction to how Tour Edge worked, which was actually great because like before I came in, I had a feel for how to work with Dave, how to work with the team, how the team worked and all that stuff.
Okay.
It was a nice introduction to how things might go. So then, it went well enough that I got the job, and so came in kind of at the tail end of 220. We were pretty much already in production of 220. So the 521 stuff was really my first product that was like, from scratch, like I'm working on it.
Wow.
But so, basically, get involved on all the emails, all the vendor communications, all the engineering CAD, all the drawings, like right away. And so really kind of saw how things were working at Tour Edge and how it was going. And so, like I said, it was like drinking from the fire hose. But, Dave and everyone at Tour Edge is awesome to work with. But, Dave, who like kind of handles like all the design, all of the cosmetics, a lot of the engineering, all that stuff, really working hand in hand with him. And he made it really easy to like, pick up the torch on some of these different products and getting a really good idea of what he anticipates, like what we're trying to do together. So my background in kind of the CAD and engineering world, and his background in kind of more of the design and like what a golf club needs to look like and what the market wants and all that stuff. We've really been able to like work really well together, I think, to make some like really cool product with some upgraded tech features and, even better thought behind where we end up on like our center of gravity properties to achieve certain launch conditions, certain spin conditions, all that stuff. We're able to get like way further down into the weeds than I think Tour Edge was previously. So I think it's been, with 521 and 721, it's kind of like a pretty, and the product was really good before that, but I think we've just taken another step even further. And, along with tying in with marketing, I think we're doing an even better job of like making sure that the tech features we have make sense from a marketing standpoint, that they know what we're working on so that Claffy can have, a really good visibility to what marketing features come up with. And, they're the ones that come up with the names that we've got on things like ViberCore and, those kind of things. Like I'm an engineer, so that's not what I do. I say like, hey, here's this thing, and we're filling it with this TPU, and we've got TPU. I was like, what if we just called it TPU? And they're like, well, that's not going to work, because they say, you stupid engineer. So so that's where like that gets passed off to them. But that's been really part of the cool part of Tour Edge, is like working so closely with everyone, because we're all in this small world here in Batavia, and we all are in it together too, to like figure this out. And that's one of the cool things, and that gets lost a lot at some of the bigger companies when things have to go through 25 different layers to just get there. And that's one of the greatest things of having engineering being so tied in with marketing. And you kind of joked about it that I was doing my marketing, wearing my marketing hat, but we have to do that a lot too, because I have a different side of the marketing story that Claff tells. Sure. And he has a different side of the engineering story that I tell. So I think together they work together really well. And it's a lot of fun to, hear what Claff has to say after we get done designing and engineering the product. I'm always curious to see what his take on things are. So
it's always fun. I work with a lot of engineers too. And, and cause I'm on the marketing side as well. And I feel like engineers are actually very creative people. It's just like a different kind of creativity.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All right. Like just you make the thing, you build it, you do all the really complicated stuff, and I'm going to call it Diamond Face.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it on top.
To be fair, Diamond Face may have been the easiest marketing name of all time. Here's this thing. I actually have a piece here. Here's this thing. It's the face. It's got a bunch of diamonds on it. What should we call it? How about Diamond Face? So that may have been the easiest layup of all time.
That's awesome. So how does it? So with the new 721 stuff, did David design it and hand it off to you? How does that work within the design product development space? I have no idea how that kind of like, what's the back and forth there?
Yeah, so we kind of, we basically start by looking at the current product. So we look at 220 or whatever was before 220 or other exotics product. And we kind of say, okay, what did we like about 220 and what are our design targets for the next one? And, at that point, we didn't even know what it was called. We didn't know it was going to be called 721. We've got a random, number system name, X237.
Oh, you guys don't do like project names like, Project Strawberry Shortcake or anything like you're not like a software company or something.
So we've in the past, and I've always tried to avoid those to some degree because sometimes the names you'll become so fond of them and other people will as well. And sometimes the name could be okay, but it's like one of those things you see it over and over again. And all of a sudden that name becomes attached to it. And sometimes it will stick and it doesn't end up really it doesn't make sense for the marketplace. And that happened at some past companies. And it was so I prefer the code name, just fair. Letter series of numbers, again, that might just be me being an engineer, and also I don't have that many creative code names to come up with or anything like that. And we don't have a big enough marketing team that Claff can spend time making code names for all of our different projects. So I've just gone with the number system. So we'll basically look at the past product. We'll see what else is going on in the marketplace because we all, of course, just like everybody, we go get all the competitor products. We put it on our robot. We test it. We see what other people are doing. We hear from our salespeople what is working out there, what is our product not doing that somebody else needs to do. And so with the transition from 220 to C721, the couple big things were okay, we want a little bit more traditional head shape. That was some of the feedback on 220 was it was a little bit triangular looking because that was kind of the goal on 220 was to get the MOI really, really, really high, get the CG pulled back really, really far. Yep. And they accomplished that goal really, really well. We had incredibly high MOI, really good CG properties. But we were just having, maybe a little bit too much spin and we weren't quite getting the launch we wanted. So those were kind of the things. So kind of started all right, what kind of head shape can we fit into this bubble or envelope? And so that's kind of where I start working in the CAD world. And so I'll come up with something that kind of I think looks good. And, we've decided to increase the face height by 2 millimeters or whatever and do this, and that's kind of in our design brief. And so we have 2 3D printers in the office. So design it in the CAD, print, make a 3D print, and then we all look at it together and we say, okay, this is looking good, or this looks like a turd, or whatever it might be, or this is close, but let's try to move the heel in a little bit. And, and then, if it is something that's going to affect where we're at in the engineering properties, we've kind of got to make some of those decisions too. Okay, if we do this thing, we're not quite going to be able to hit the CG location that we want. So is this trade-off worth it? And that's kind of, a huge portion of the design process is weighing the trade-offs between the things that work cosmetically and the things that I'm trying to accomplish from a technical standpoint. Yeah. So, and that's something that as an engineer in golf, you just have to realize you can't necessarily do everything you always want to do because sometimes it looks like crap. And you've certainly seen products out there that just don't look very good and they don't sell. They might do what they're, supposed to be doing. Sure. But nobody's going to buy it. So that's one of the trade-offs that we have to deal with in engineering. And so that's a big back and forth process. Then when we kind of get to a head shape we like, that's when we really start hollowing it out, trying to position the CG where we want it to go. We take a look at all our available tech features that we might have, whether that's movable weights, Diamond Face 2.0, integrating carbon wings, like an upgrade from just the carbon crown, all of that stuff. So we kind of, look at this big menu that we have. How much the product's going to cost is, of course, another big one. And so those are all kind of the things we look at throughout the entire design process. And eventually we end up with the product that you see in front of you. So it's a long process. process. And, really before, so even before 721 launches, we're 6 months into 721's replacement. Like, we've already been thinking
right.
about what the replacement is for 721. And that's one of the craziest things, like in golf, is it's like sometimes by the time, and that goes for so many products, but by the time something launches, like, to me, I'm like, oh, I was like, that's old. Like, this is launching now. I thought this launched 6 months ago, so,
Right.
and it's like, we're still dealing with manufacturing stuff and, getting product in. It's like, oh, I thought we were done with that. Like, that was, we signed off on that 4 months ago. So that's kind of one of the crazy things, like, just, how long these product cycles are and how long it takes to get something right. But that's the biggest thing, because if we try to rush it and go too fast, then we're not going to end up where we want to end up. So getting a big head start on the product, but being able to have enough flexibility to see what the marketplace is doing, because something that we think a couple months before we launch 721, or even as we see 721, and like, okay, well, we did accomplish these goals, but we accomplished it at the sacrifice of this, and that's just not quite working. So what things can we improve upon for whatever the next product is called, X128974. So that was a little long-winded, but that's kind of how we go through the design process, at least at Tour Edge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about anyone else listening, but I find that stuff just fascinating. How, so you don't really have, maybe you have a little bit of physics in mind and data in mind when you're designing something, but really ultimately you're going to design a head shape that you think will work with the physics that, David Glod has thought of or wants to try or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And there are just certain things with, like, head shape that we know that we can't do, that, either from a manufacturing standpoint or from an aerodynamic standpoint, that aren't going to work, or just from a mass property standpoint that aren't going to work. Like, if we raise up we might think it looks really nice if we raise up the crown of the driver by 8 millimeters, but we know that that's going to have a massive effect on our up and down center of gravity, which we know is very important to performance. So it's like, sometimes that's just a non-starter, and like, it's like, I really like how this looks, and it's like, well, we've got to find a way to make this other thing work, because that's something we can't sacrifice. Now, there might be another decision further down the road that's like, we have to make something this thickness because it looks better, and so we can go look and say, okay, well, this trade-off is not very high. Like, we're only giving up 0.1 of a millimeter versus 1 millimeter. And sometimes, those things are acceptable. Like, we can do those things. And sometimes, you just have to, you can look at it and everybody says, okay, will this change? If we make this change, will it sell more or less product? And that's something that we kind of have to look at sometimes, especially when we're up against the gun. It's like, okay, is this thing a little bit off, or do we have to make this change? And it's like, okay, well, are we going to sell more product if we make this change? Is this okay? Or is this going to be detrimental? So we kind of have to look at a lot of those things as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. I've
never been happier to be on the marketing side. Like, just give me the thing, and I'll.
and that is sometimes, that's the only time I ever get frustrated with Claff, is when he's asking for things too early. I'm like, I don't have it yet. Okay. I don't have it. It's not ready. We're getting it right. Okay.
Yeah. I would imagine that's true. All right. Let's talk about your love of golf and when did that happen? I also definitely need to hear how you introduced your own father to the game, but let's start with you. When did it happen? When did the game grab you and not let go?
So I started playing golf like a little bit, like in 3rd, 4th grade. I took a few lessons, but I didn't catch the bug yet. My grandma got me a set of golf clubs and some lessons, but I was way more interested in soccer, baseball, basketball, all the other, I don't know, I guess you call them more traditional sports.
Right.
But it was, I think, the summer of like 6th grade, and I had a friend, Andrew Lombardi, in case he's listening, shout out Andrew. He was very into golf, and they had summer programs at the golf course there near me, Encinitas Ranch, in Encinitas, California.
Okay.
Just 15 or 20 minutes away from TaylorMade, Callaway, Titleist, that part of the country. And then started doing the summer classes there. And, it was every Wednesday, all the balls you can hit, and we'd hit them. And then Andrew and I would go to the golf course like every day. Encinitas Ranch was just an incredibly packed golf course. They had a really good junior program. It was like, I think we paid like $40 for the year, and then we could play for $15. No
Wow.
restrictions on weekdays, and like on weekends, after 1 p.m. We couldn't make tee times. So we'd go, and it would be like every morning we'd get there, at 7 a.m., get on the walk-on list. We didn't want to get split up. So we'd go on the walk-on list as a twosome, and so sometimes we'd be at the course for like 5 hours, like just hitting balls, chipping and putting, like
Oh
waiting to get
man.
out. And, eventually we'd get out. But so we were just spending like 8, 9, 10 hours at the golf course. And, I loved it. And I think, more so than any other sport, I just loved golf, how individual it was. Like in baseball, I was a pitcher, and I love doing that because I was like, and not to say that I don't love team sports and stuff, but like I like being involved in every single play. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
pitcher, that
Mm-hmm.
was really nice. And then, go play in the outfield or whatever. And it's like, I'm just sitting here, and, same in soccer and whatever. So golf, like every single play,
Yeah,
that
that's true.
it's your play. Like nobody
Yeah.
else is stepping in to hit your putt. Of course, there's formats where that happens, but so I really like that in golf, and so just really got the bug. Had another friend that was really into it, and so we were just doing the same thing, like 6th through 8th grade all summer. Just at the golf course like every day, and playing a lot of junior golf tournaments, and just really, really into it. And then high school came. I was still pretty into baseball. So I played football and baseball in high school. Unfortunately, baseball was the same time as golf season.
Yep.
Our high school had a really, really good golf team. So I didn't even play on the golf team in high school. And I don't even know if I probably wouldn't have made the varsity team, at least my freshman and sophomore year. Still played I still played a ton of golf and still played tournaments throughout the summer, just didn't play high school golf. Until my senior year, I decided I was over baseball, joined the golf team. And I was a pretty good golfer. I was probably close to scratch, but I was like the 7-man on our high school golf team. We won the state championship that year. The other 6 guys ahead of me all went and played like very serious Division I golf. One kid went to Pepperdine, one went to University of Chicago. So these were these kids were way, way better than me. And they were all like freshmen and sophomores too. So, it was very quickly that I understood and realized that I was not destined or set out for professional golf at all. I know, of course, there's times when any kid who plays a lot of golf and plays high school golf and, plays in junior golf tournaments and gets, 3rd places, 5th places, whatever. I was never that good, but always, it's like, maybe golf could be a dream. But, I realized pretty early in high school, I was like, these kids are way better than me. I don't have quite the work ethic to get as good as them. I don't have the natural talent. So I was like, all right, golf isn't going to be I'm not going to be a professional golfer.
Now, during this time though, too, you became a huge gear nerd, right?
Yes.
So how did that happen? What was it about were you always kind of mechanical like that? Were you born an engineer?
Yeah.
Right. Like that kind of thing. What grabbed you about the equipment?
I was always pretty nerdy and pretty good in math and science. My dad's an engineer, so that's part of it. I think my mom talks about nightmares that my dad gave me in like 1st or 2nd grade, trying to explain torque to me. Like I would have like night terrors, like about torque. Like trying to teach a 6-year-old what torque is. That was that. So, but it's always been in my a passion of mine. I wish I think my mom might have pictures of it. In 8th grade for science fair, I made like a golf robot. Robot. It was like a bunch of plywood that was all drilled together with a big spring on it that I did. My science fair project was, which golf ball goes the farthest. This robot, I think, hit the ball probably 40 yards. I'm using the term robot very liberally. It was like, standing there. I think I was too little to like load it at the time. So my dad had to like hold it with his feet and, load the thing. And,
awesome.
The spring after, 25 hits was shot. So I don't think the test results were valid. I don't think they'd stand up here at Tour Edge. But
what was your hypothesis? What was your hypothesis for the experiment?
Well, so I was testing if soaking golf balls in water would deteriorate them. It was a water hazard test. So we got a bunch of what I think I actually wrote away to some of the golf companies, and at least Titleist, they sent me a dozen golf balls to run my test with. So
good for them. That's awesome.
So, soaked each ball a different length of time. And yeah, I don't think the results, I don't think I had much of a confidence interval, but I was doing some pretty nerdy stuff for a 7th and 8th grader for science fair. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I loved it, but that was kind of where I started to get into the equipment. And then in high school, when I had a little bit of money, or at least mom's credit card, whatever it may have been, just started really getting into some of the equipment forums. Golf Opinions, I think, was my first one that transitioned into Bomb Squad Golf.
Yeah.
So these were, I think, relatively early in the equipment forum days, and I just loved it. Like, and that was, I still remember like buying I think it was a TaylorMade 300 tour. It was just like all the buzz on all the tour players were playing it or whatever. It was just this huge thing, and I was like, so excited. I couldn't hit it. I think the one I got was like 7.5 degrees of loft, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so I was just, I just kind of became an equipment nerd, and I started refinishing my own golf clubs, started building my own golf clubs. I got like a vise and a gripping station in my garage. And so I was doing all this stuff, I was, I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I really caught the equipment bug, through high school. And it was, it was out of control. Probably it was a little out of control. I was a club hoe, as I would so affectionately call it.
That's great.
Yeah. So, while I wasn't like the greatest golfer, I really, really, really loved it. And that's not to say I was a bad golfer. I was good enough, and, went away to college and played golf in college, but, just Division III golf. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Because my main focus, and like I said, I realized I wasn't going to be a golf professional. My main focus was to get a degree in engineering, but the fact that I was able to play golf for 4 years at school, was a massive benefit, and that's really awesome. Huge, and kept me into the game. I know if I'd gone somewhere else where I hadn't been on the golf team, I might have fallen away from it a little bit. I stopped buying as much equipment once I got to college, because there were other things to spend my money on, and other thing to spend my time with. Right. But throughout high school, it was pretty bad. So,
okay. So how did you introduce your dad to the game?
Yeah. So introduce might not be quite right, but I'll say so. He wasn't that into golf, right. Really it was more or less my grandma that kind of got me like golf clubs, and got me, really thought it would be a good idea for me to, try golf. She always thought it was a great sport. My mom, I think, played some golf growing up, but never played at all. But in college, when I would come home for summer or Christmas, or we'd go on Christmas vacation or Thanksgiving or whatever, the only thing that I wanted to do was like, all right, we're going to Las Vegas. Like, I want to go play this golf course or whatever. And so my mom or my dad would just come along, and they weren't like, they were afraid to play golf like with other people. They didn't really want to, because it's a scary thing to do if you're not good at golf, to like, sure. Oh my gosh, we're going to get paired with somebody. Yep. And so that was always a tough sell for them, for either of them. But so throughout, they started realizing that like, if they want to spend time with me on vacation, like they're going to have to golf, because that's what I want to do. And so sometimes they would ride in the cart with me. One of them would come, they'd switch after 9 or whatever. That kind of a thing. Yeah. And eventually they started thinking like, this is stupid. Like, why don't we just start playing? And so we started playing more frequently together. My dad was in the military, so we could go play, Camp Pendleton Marine Base. Yeah. And those courses weren't as crowded and as busy, and we could always play just the three of us. Got more comfortable with it. And, so that was like, and so then we'd start going on vacations, and we'd go play golf together, and we'd do that. And so I say that I got my dad into golf. It wasn't quite that extreme, but my dad, if it weren't for me, my mom and dad wouldn't be playing the amount of golf that they do. And now, right. At least my mom for sure plays more rounds of golf in a year than I do. So
really?
So she's awesome. A member of like 4 different golf leagues in the Southern California area now. COVID's been a little tricky with all that, but she was a member at the Torrey Pines Women's Club, Coronado, the Crossings, all the women's golf leagues, and was playing 3 or 4 times a week. And I was like, I'm jealous of you. So right. And they've gotten a lot better and really enjoy it, and aren't that worried about getting paired up with people anymore. So, and that's one of the toughest things. And that's why, this whole thing, like all these new people getting into golf, and that's just kind of what I hope for like some of these golf courses and places. Just make it a little thing, to make it more relaxing and more fun for people and less stressful, because I can totally see it. Like, I'm lucky enough that I started golfing at a young age, and, just have that skill, and will be able to be at least decent at golf if I want to be, and can go play and feel comfortable at a golf course. But it's really hard when you're getting into it to like just go out and feel comfortable getting paired with 3 strangers. Like, you're on display, people feel like it, but
yeah,
I don't know, the toughest thing, and the thing that I tell like my mom and dad when they were trying to get, when we would get paired with somebody or whatever, is like, this person does not care at all what you're doing, as long as you play fast. And, that was one of the first things I like, and that's what I think some people maybe don't get those lessons, and maybe it's not the best thing to teach, but it's like starting out, just don't worry about your score. Like if you're having a bad hole, like pick it up and put it on the putting green. Like just have fun. Like we're not here. Nobody cares if you shot a 124 or a 128. Like just pick up the ball, have fun, like get into it. And then once you get there, that's when you can start keeping score and start being really serious about it. And, now they're both breaking 90 consistently, and, they're playing real golf now. But, we'd tee it up in the fairway, make it easy, pull it out of the bunkers, like all that stuff, and I know that that's not like the rules of the game, but it doesn't need to be that. It doesn't need to be so serious. And that's one of the things I think so many golfers just take themselves and the sport way too seriously. But
man, amen.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, the other thing too is, I think if you want to introduce someone to something like golf, like at least this is what I do with my kids, my kids are old. They're, all college age or college graduate even. And so I destroyed all those stigmas, as many as possible, as quickly as possible within the first 3 holes. Like,
good. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yep.
You want to play music? Let's play music. Like, don't be a jerk about it, but we can play music, like,
yeah, it's just like anything. You go to you go to the beach and you want to play music, you can play music, but don't be a jerk about it. That's like why not at a golf course?
The general rule about it should just be, don't be a jerk about it. Right?
Yeah. Like, that's just a general rule of life. So
yeah, just do whatever you want. Just don't, but I mean, again, we played 9 holes, and the first thing they said coming off the 9th green was like, Dad, I'll do this whenever you want. I want to do this again. It was so much fun. And that was, it was just because, like you just said, like, yeah, we would pick up sometimes. We would have a putting contest on another hole just because we could, what I mean? Like just kind of do things just to enjoy the game, because the game is so great that don't worry, you're going to want to keep score eventually.
Yeah, but don't worry about it now. Like it's not like, the first time you step on a basketball court, you're probably not going to be able to dunk, but if you keep playing, maybe you will someday. So like, don't worry about it.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing, and I'm starting to get my wife into it a little bit, is like, par 3 courses are just the best place to go and play. And because you can play 9 holes in less than an hour. Like if you're having a bad day, like you're going to be done in 20 minutes, and nobody who's out at a par 3 course cares that much. Like everybody's there having fun, drinking beers, listening to music. Like just go. This person is not worried about what you're doing. So just have fun. And so I think those are the places that, people need to like, that's where you should get into the game, because when you go to a stuffy country club or even a stuffy, even municipal facilities, they can feel very intimidating, and you're there on the tee and there's a bunch of people around and, all that stuff. It can be intimidating for some folks, and it's totally understandable. So, getting started in, par 3s and all that, that's where, I got started as a kid, and that's where I started playing with my family more, were par 3 courses. And, I think those are the best places to go, because they're really easy, really low key, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This is fun, man. Thanks for doing this. And you know what? I know you're like a California kid, and I won't hold that against you or anything, but you really fit into the Midwest. I feel like you've got some real Midwestern.
Oh, that's good to hear. I mean, honestly, it's the year and a half here, I've actually loved it. I think we've been, I guess I don't really know, I don't have anything to compare it to, but we've been through 2 winters thus far, and they've been pretty tame.
I mean, if you're going to call the past, what the last 2 weeks of February was tame, then you'll be fine.
I guess I'd say moving here, I anticipated that the last 2 weeks of February, that's what it was going to be like from December until March. So the fact that, yeah, we had like a week of boatload of snow, and then we had 2 weeks of bitter cold. Like, I don't know, I can deal with that. That's not that bad. And this year was the worst because of COVID, we didn't go home for Christmas or anything. We've just been here. And, that's kind of sucked, but, I've gotten to spend a lot of extra time with my family, which has been awesome. And yeah, everybody here in the Midwest is like almost obnoxiously nice. Now coming from Texas, same deal in Texas. Everybody's very nice too, but just slightly different degree. I don't know, but I really liked it here so far. It's been awesome. So I love the Midwest.
Good, man. Well, welcome to Chicago.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Do you get out to play at all, or are you just like working and designing clubs for everybody else to play?
No, I get out. Once we hit April, I play. We play COG Dubs Dread #4 most Sundays. We've got like a 6 a.m. tee time there. So play there a lot. It's also another great thing about being in the golf industry. Usually there's once or twice a month that we get to go out and play during the week, whether it's a product testing or we have a tour player in town or something like that. So, I get to play a decent bit. I'm starting to try and get into some of the CDGA amateur events, trying to play a couple of those because I do miss competitive golf a little bit. It's a whole different animal, a whole different world. So trying to do some of that, get the game in shape, but mostly just for fun. So I don't know. I still get out enough. The 2-year-old makes it a little tougher, makes me feel a little worse about it, but that's why we try to go out at 6 a.m. so I can be home by 10 and don't feel as bad about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a 2-year-old and I still would prefer to be out at 6 a.m. and home by 10 or home by 11.
I mean, that's been one of the things I've almost gotten addicted to fast rounds of golf. It's hard for me to go out and like play at 10 a.m. and like be out there for 5.5 hours. So it's really nice. It's like, and it almost feels like you get 2 days. Like, it's like, all right, my golf day from 6 to 10 a.m. It's like I get back, eat breakfast, and it's like, all right, the second day is starting. So that's like the best thing about, because that's the problem. You play at 10 a.m. It's like, okay, well, you can't really do anything before 10. Right. You get to the course, you're there from 10 to 4 or whatever it is, get home, it's dinner time, and it's like, all right, the day is over by the time you're done with golf. So, that's a whole different type of golf. I love that too. But when I'm trying to, keep my wife and daughter happy,
be a dad and a husband.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think at some point this summer, it should be you and me and Claff and Mr. Tourage himself, Bill Bush, go out. We were just at Cog Hill on Sunday, actually playing in the snow, screwing around.
Oh, awesome.
So we can all go out and meet out there, man.
Yeah, let's do it. We got it. That'll be a blast.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt, again. Cool. And we'll see each other this summer.
Great. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.